Good morning, my beloved family of light here on Earth. It's a joy to be here with you today on my Presence of Light Talks. And I welcome each and one of you with a very open heart. I'm hoping that I can be seen or heard. Looks like I have a number of 2 or 3 people up in the corner, 5. Charlie Tano, thank you for being present. So it looks like I'm being seen. Hopefully I'm being heard. And today's talk is about embracing integrity of the heart. Good morning. Thank you, Charlie. This message came to me last night as a result of a talk I had with a friend, a very good friend, underneath a maple tree in my front yard, where we sit and contemplate all of our own personal issues as well as the probably esoteric and spiritual issues of the world, as 2 older men who are learning to accept our divine energies, both masculine and feminine, balance them, and keep our hearts open. And that's an interesting process for all of us. You don't have to be older men to suffer from this inability to keep your heart open. And what's interesting is, as I listen to myself speak from my higher self, I realize that it's really about keeping our integrity, and which led me to say, well, what really is integrity? And of course, I have to look it up because my intellectual memory and mind doesn't work as everybody else's does now. And so that's what this morning's talk is about. As I begin, my heart is heavily burdened with the suffering of many people right now through natural causes, and some that are just accidents. And so what came to my mind and is going through the networks of television, or we have fires, we have a hurricane hitting the east coast of the United States, and not too far away, near where I lived years ago in Massachusetts, there was gas explosions, and I think there's only 1 person that was dead, but several are injured, and it was like 70 homes. It was an unheard of experience for these people. And so I know people are tuned into that around the world, and I'm not familiar with what's going on around the world at this moment, but I know there's earthquakes and there's a lot of havoc and chaos, bringing people to a place of fear within themselves. And I ask that each of us just hold them in our hearts and know that we are really one family. We're not separated. And so too, this talk about embracing the integrity of the heart is realizing that we're not separated within ourselves either. And how do we actually come back to that place within us that is unified? That's our integrity. I was going to read something as I began, and it's from Lessons from the Source, and it's just this simple statement: you are one with the entire universe, its substance, its intelligence, its activity. This means that your essence is the very essence of the universe. This is who and what you are, and this is true for every human being. You are an expression of my divinity, where all is in order. And that's a message to remind us that we are in unity at some level of our higher beingness, however you choose to look at that. And the word integrity comes from the Latin word integer, as the word integrate does too, which was brought to my conscious awareness this morning. And so what we're really doing here, or need to do if we haven't already begun the journey, is to start to integrate the many different parts of ourselves and expressions of ourselves, both energetically and spiritually, back into a unified field. And so the word integer means whole and complete. And as we talked yesterday morning, or all day, we talked for hours. What the struggle for both of us is maintaining, how do we maintain our heart open? Because there are so many things in our daily life and in our past experience of life that keep wanting us to shut it down, wanting us to protect it or defend it, or places where people have hurt us deeply, or we have hurt ourselves deeply and found great damage. And how do we overcome that and not live in fear of that pain or that experience again? And so it's about being integral, and that's a state of being whole and undivided. So what we see in the world today that plays out before us is all of this separation, all of this pain, all of this agony, all of this suffering. And it doesn't matter whether it's just a little bit or a lot. It's all tied to the same energetic frequency. So we need to be true to ourselves, both what I would say was be morally and in honoring ourselves. We need to honor ourselves. And that's, we've been taught since we were a child not to be full of ourselves, or not to think we're so damn smart, and we've been, most of our lives have not been encouraged to trust that inner heart self, because it didn't reflect what the outer world was all about. And so we were been taught since childhood to shut that down, to ignore that, to well, you can love all you want, but you got to get out there and have a job and go to work and make a living, and that heart thing, all your heart talk is not going to help you. Then we grow up, we get married and have children, and we wonder, why are we having problems in relationship with, our relationships with others? And it stems really from these childhood teachings by people who are also suffering from not being in their full integrity. They're not bad people. Some end up as what we would call bad people, criminals of one sort or another. But for most of us, the lack of integrity really just creates confusion within our own conscious awareness as to what is right and what is wrong. And we end up flipping and flopping and then coming to a place of regret or remorse, and then forgiving ourselves, and then back and forth and back and forth. I'm exhausted. I don't know about you. And the journey lately for my friend and I have really been about tapping deeper into the root system. As we were sitting under the tree, and I looked at it as the root system of who we are. Where is the source of our nourishment? Like the roots of the trees run deep into the earth, deep into the earth. And so to our heart runs deep within our, what I would call spiritual self. There are roots, there are doorways, stairways. We've heard the metaphors through our lifetimes of having many mansions, within us. And this is where our integrity flows forth from. They are the sacred, I'm getting the sacred wells upon which civilization can sustain itself. And it's an alignment with truth within us that sort of weaves all of these teachings and broken concept, these pains, the suffering, into a cohesive fabric of honesty and truthfulness, balancing our conscious choices. And when that happens, we start to make better choices with our conscious ego mind. So in this world of chaos, which I spoke about last week, and rising above it, part of the key factor is to deepen into our root system, into our hearts, and begin to realize that therein lies reality. Therein lies truth. And all of the information coming at us from the external is reflected and triggering that. And most of us throughout our lives have been influenced by what's outside of us more often than what is within us. This is the cause of our separation. We choose consciously to separate and say, I'm going to choose to be this external being, this guy with a red shirt and a short haircut, and all of those are who I am. And we put labels on ourselves. I'm a father, I'm an engineer, I'm a carpenter, I'm a doctor, I'm a baker, I'm a whatever it is. And we identify with these objects. And then we attach ourselves to whatever that the ideal or intention of that structure is. And we become them. And some of it's beautiful, and some of it is very purposeful. But in that moment, we are pulling ourselves ever so slightly away from the core of who we truly are. As I said in the beginning, we are the universe. We are the light. We are the love. We are the cohesive fabric of everything. And when we look at the chaos around us, we are also part of that chaos. But our true self continues to dwell within the heart. And so this is where we need to have integrity. We can see it. I can see it. You can see it. When we have integrity in our heart, when we come together and we got all our stuff together, all working together, everything seems to flow. It works. And when we don't, we have this pattern of life that is extremely distressful. When we're distressed, we become, the body reacts. When our energy is distressed, then our physical body becomes distressed. It's automatic. You can't separate the energy of who we are from the physicality of who we are. And so living in these vehicles, these physical vehicles, the less integrity we have within ourselves, the more we're going to physically embody that. So my message today is when we embrace within our heart, the integrity within our heart, the values and the methods and actions and things that we know in our heart is right, but we're afraid of doing because we're afraid somebody's going to make fun of us, or they're going to criticize us, or they're going to punch us in the face. I often tell a story of when I was probably 15, 16 years old and walking down the street at the beach. And I was alone, which a lot of my childhood I was. I didn't have a lot of I didn't have any real close friends. They would all leave me because I was the sensitive one. And so I didn't always enjoy all of the things that they were doing. And I'm walking down the street, and this older guy, must probably be in his 20s, and he's walking opposite me. And the next thing I know, he reaches out and punches me right in the face. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. But his inner chaos was so bad that he punched me in the face. And his words to me was, "You just have the kind of face I want to punch." And I can laugh now. But there I was. I was there in my own world, in my own integrity, walking down the street, not a care in the world, just loving life, nothing on my mind. And that person caught that vibration. And his reaction, because he was so out of integrity, so scattered in his own mind, he chose to attack me. This is what most of us have experienced on some level, not perhaps in that way, but when we have tapped into our heart, when we have been in that special place of inner integrity and cohesiveness, we have rattled the doors of everybody who wasn't around us. And some of them were very violent. So we learned at very early stages of our lives, stages that were very important to our psychological development, to pull in and then change, override who we truly were. And we created, might be called an alter ego. And became, well, I'm going to be the tough guy, or I'm going to be the strong person. Nobody's ever going to do that to me again. Well, that's shutting down who we are. We're shutting down our truth. And so right now in this time of evolution of humanity, it's being more important for us to find that again within us. And it's not an easy process. It can be very painful. You will spend time crying. You will spend time feeling lost. All of those things. But once you start the journey and start to find them and realize that isn't who I am. I never was that person. What happens is we begin to let go of victimhood. So embracing integrity within our heart, we automatically start to shed the victimhood of our lives without really seeking or trying to figure it out. It just comes up for review, and now we can look and say, no, that was then, that's who I was. I was not being in my full integrity then because I had no idea what that meant. And I was being told by so many other people that I was something other than who I was, and I was very confused. That's my story, that's your story, that's all our stories. We're one story, but we've divided it up into so many parts that we've lost touch with the truth of who we are. And yet each one of us is uniquely different, yet at the core we're all one. So part of the journey is to keep your hearts open, to learn to forgive ourselves. And I always say forgiving is to be for, pro giving. I'm not erasing anything. I can't erase what's been done. But I can be in my own heart willing to still give in spite of what's been done to me. And in doing that, I give to myself, because I can't give you, nor can you give anybody something else unless it comes through you. That's for giving. And in that moment, in the Course in Miracles card I pulled this morning was, as forgiveness allows love to return to my awareness, I will see a world of peace and safety and joy. And it happens. It happens ever so slightly in the beginning, but it starts to change your perception of who you are and what your role and responsibility in this world is. And that's what we need now. That's what evolution is about, is an awakening to something that's greater than we have been in the past. We're not, as humans, not the only things evolving. The planet is evolving. The universe is evolving. It's a constant process. We can't measure it in timelines because we don't have words to describe that great amount of what we call time or space. This morning, somebody wrote, a friend, Kelly Lynn, who I love her dearly, has amazing writings, and she wrote on Facebook an article, and I responded in these words. Integrating our many separate selves and living in integrity is a key force in moving beyond the illusions to that vaster self which dwells within our hearts, where conditions are not found because they have no support system. And this is what we do. We create conditions. And it's a conditional life we live instead of a true life, because it's based on something outside of us. But when we come into that true heart, there are no conditions. It's all perfectly aligned. And I'm thinking, it's sort of like home. I'm home. I'm home. For the first time in my life, I'm feeling the sense of being home within this body. And so my hope for you this week is to think about that, is to think about, it's not easy to keep our hearts open. And we'll open them, and then somebody will attack us or in some way, verbally, mentally, or whatever, and we'll shut it down. Don't be afraid to open it up right up again. I'm reminded of the flowers that close at night when the darkness falls. They close up and they open. They close up, and that's basically probably a similar metaphor for what we need to do, is to continually to shut it down when we're not receiving love, we're not receiving light, or we're not receiving encouragement from others, is to close down, to shut the doors to our heart, and not block per se, but just protect and limit our exposure to that. And then when that dissipates, open our hearts again, like the beautiful lotuses they are. It's a journey of the heart, but the key is integrity. So looks like I got a few minutes left. And as I always randomly grab a book, or a book calls me, my shows are all about being led by spirit. I say this often because sometimes I can't, it's hard for me to believe that I do this, is that I don't think about this all week. Usually the night before or the morning of, a word will pop into my guides will give me a word, and I'll just roll with that and sleep with that and play with it. And then the next morning, everything kind of just appears. I start my own search, my writing of what am I going to say. I don't have any clue. I get nervous, I get fearful, and then I say, I just trust. I open that heart, keep that heart open, and trust. And so I don't actually, the Gene Keys, the book of the Gene Keys, is an amazing book. It's an amazing book. It's an I Ching of your soul. I don't do it in a course manner, but I randomly, like when I did the Course in Miracles, would open to a page and bingo, guidance would lead me there. And so the 18th Gene Key is about integrity. And, it's so funny because that's what it came up. So some highlights that I just picked out just before I came on were these messages. The secret gift of integrity is to be able to hold your own space without reacting to your judgments or self-judgments. Another message further down the page is, for many people who have to resolve issues from their teenage cycle, which I spoke of, and many of us are suffering from those things, and earlier childhood, but their teenage cycle is one that's critical to how we relate to the world as an adult. Okay, and so for many people who have to resolve issues from their teenage cycle, it will take a full 7 years. So you can look at the 7-year cycle. I'm coming up on my 10th 7-year cycle, so it's becoming aware. But we can work on this anytime, but knowing that in the 7th cycle, it's going to become more profound for us to address, because it's a sort of a cycle in which you can really get rid of a lot. Whether through therapy, body work, or some sustained system that targets your conditioning. So then when a person has gained the gift of integrity or grown into it through a healthy passage into adult, it will remain forever, because it is the true nature of every human being. It is the same energy, the same archetype. When you are free from the trap of the victim mind, and that's what it does. When we come into integrity, we start to lose that sense of being a victimhood and being a victim. And from your judgment becomes integrity, the arch enemy of the victim mind. It is the same energy, the same archetype, but experienced from a higher level of consciousness. And so that's what we can look forward to, is to being free from these limitations that keep us from really living our lives to the fullest. And to the fullest means with love and joy and a peaceful co-creative manner. And so that's my message this week for embracing integrity of the heart, is we have a choice. And we right now are in a cycle where the universe is supporting us in making choices that are better, not only for ourselves, but for all evolving humans. And with that, I'm complete and wish the highest blessings that I can from within my heart to you, to embrace you with a loving hug, a giant hug from deep within my heart, and let you know that I love you. I don't know you personally, and I don't know who you are or what your lives are like or anything about you. But I know that the love that I have in my heart is meant to be shared with you. And that's why I'm here. And that's anything that is going to limit me from doing that is going to contradict the integrity of who I am and what I do. Hold that in your hearts. Allow your minds to sip it. Sip it like a fine wine or a sweet tea. And when you get that energy that wants to shut your heart down, don't stay there. Come right back. You don't have to maybe do it with that person or that situation, but come back and know that the love and the integrity within you is more powerful than whatever your appearing opponent is. With that, I love you, I thank you, and I respect you. May your week be one filled with enlightenment and a lifting of the heaviness in your hearts. And we'll see you next week. And it's been a joy to be here and talk with you. Talk at you, some people say. But I know that this is part of my integrity, is to bring forth messages that I experience so that others will not feel alone in what they're experiencing. Presence of light, I'll say goodbye. See you next week, or on Facebook, or on my blog, or wherever we meet, and know that it's all happening. It's all happening. Bye-bye.